Hello and welcome to the Project Management PrepCast, your PMP exam preparation course that boldly goes where no other course has gone before. I'm your instructor, Cornelius Fichtner. This lesson is an overview of the process of preparing for and taking your PMP exam. We'll talk about PMI and what other credentials and certifications the organization offers, along with introducing you to the PMP eligibility requirements. It is also very important to talk a bit about what and how to document your work history for your application. We'll talk about a mixed bag of various exam topics, which is simply titled Exam Info. And we also need to introduce you to the fact that your certification is not for life and what you need to do in order to maintain it. One luxury of the PMP is that you only have to take the exam once if you keep good records, but then I'm getting ahead of myself. We'll get into all of that soon enough. This presentation's focus is on helping you understand how to get and maintain your certification. Unlike with many of the other PrepCast lessons, this information here is not covered in the PMBOK guide. There are, however, a number of sources for the lesson's information that you can find on the PMI's website. The primary sources are the Project Management Professional Handbook, which defines the process for getting and maintaining your PMP certification. The Project Management Professional Examination Content Outline, which gives you a high-level understanding of what the test's questions cover, and the Continuing Certification Requirements Handbook, which you should bookmark in your browser as you need to refer back to that many times to give you guidelines for maintaining your certification. These requirements and rules change occasionally, so I urge you to go to pmi.org and download the latest version of these documents. The best place to start is with a little bit of history about the Project Management Institute, or PMI, because PMI is the organization that offers the certifications we are learning about. PMI was founded 5 decades ago in 1969 and has grown to be one of the world's largest not-for-profit membership associations for the project management profession. As of the 2016 annual report, it had nearly $500 million in assets and more than 470,000 members from 207 countries and territories, served by 283 chartered and 12 potential chapters. PMI's worldwide advocacy for project management is supported by globally recognized standards, credentials, and certifications, an extensive research program, and professional development opportunities. There are just over 740,000 PMPs certified around the world. More than half of them live outside of the United States, and 1 in 6 lives in China. Its publication, A Guide to the Project Management Body of Knowledge, better known as the PMBOK Guide, which has been officially translated into more than 10 languages, has more than 5 million copies of all editions in circulations. But don't worry, you only need to know the 6th edition, and these lessons are in English here from us. Its members come from virtually every major industry, including aerospace, automotive, business management, construction, engineering, financial services, information technology, pharmaceuticals, healthcare, telecommunications, and many more. It has certifications that deal with every aspect of the running of projects, regardless of the industry. PMI offers more than just the PMP and CAPM certifications, which we teach here on the PrepCast. So in relationship to your certification endeavor, it's a good idea to understand this family of certifications. First up, the PMP. It's the most important globally recognized and independently validated credential for project managers. It's for all of us who have demonstrated experience and competence in leading project teams. This was PMI's first certification, offered in 1984. Next, there is the CAPM, which is a great entry-level certification if you are new to project management or still figuring out your career path. Then PMI offers 6 other certifications. First, the PMI ACP or PMI Agile Certified Practitioner. This demonstrates a practitioner's knowledge of agile principles and is designed for pros who utilize agile approaches on their projects. If you're interested in a PMI ACP certification, we provide study courses for it too. It's called the Agile PrepCast. The PGMP or Program Management Professional is a credential designed for those who manage multiple complex projects to achieve strategic and organizational results. The PFMP, which is PMI's Portfolio Management Professional credential, emphasizes the additional skills that portfolio managers need to demonstrate in order to achieve organizational strategies and objectives. The PMI PBA, that's PMI's Professional in Business Analysis, identifies the value and importance that business analysis provides to project success. The PMI RMP, the PMI Risk Management Professional, is a specialty credential that demonstrates competence in assessing project risks, mitigating threats, and capitalizing on opportunities. And lastly, the PMI SP or the PMI Scheduling Professional, that's another specialty credential for practitioners who focus on developing and maintaining project schedules. PMI credentials have a variety of advantages. First and foremost, they help establish your dedication to and proficiency in project management. This is because to attain a credential, you must satisfy the educational and professional experience requirements established by PMI. The certification process demonstrates your ability to apply your project management knowledge to situational and scenario-based exam questions. When you earn one or several of these prestigious credentials, you gain distinction and recognition in a growing community of project management practitioners. A PMI credential also increases your visibility, both within your organization as well as on a global level. PMI certifications are renowned and respected throughout the world. Part of that marketability comes from the prestige of these certifications. The eligibility requirements to take the PMP exam are slightly complex. They depend strongly on whether you have a high school diploma or a bachelor's degree. If you are like me and you have a high school diploma but not a bachelor's degree, then you have to have at least 60 months or 5 years of non-overlapping project management experience that include 7,500 hours of leading or directing projects in each of the 5 process groups. In addition, you also need 35 contact hours of project management education. If, however, you do have a bachelor's degree, then you only need to have 36 months or 3 years of this non-overlapping project management experience. That must include 4,500 hours of leading or directing projects in each of the 5 process groups. You also need the 35 contact hours of project management education. The good news is for you that the 35 contact hours required in either case are covered simply by watching the Project Management PrepCast. We are a PMI registered education provider and our course fulfills this PMI requirement. But what about the experience, the 2 boxes at the top? What exactly do you have to be able to show here? PMI has a thorough set of rules on that. First off, you may have noticed that carefully worded line, non-overlapping project experience. This caveat is extremely important, and here's an example that should help you understand what that means. Assume you worked on Project 1 from January to May, and then you picked up a second project called Project 2 in March, and that continued through July. Later in the year, you worked on Project 3 from October through the end of the year. Now, the problem is that you have 3 months of overlap of Projects 1 and 2 in March and April. Each of these 3 months in which you worked on multiple overlapping projects only counts as 1 month towards the total requirement of 36 or 60 months. So this means that in this example here, you get a total of 10 months of project experience because you didn't work in August or September. All project hours, even those overlapping ones, however, are counted towards fulfilling the hours experience requirement. PMI wants to see your hours spread out over time so that you had your experience cover a wide range of conditions. Here's another way of looking at this. It's how my friend Andy Kaufman from the Institute for Leadership at i-leadonline.com explains it. PMI is looking for two things regarding work experience on the application: a number of unique months and a total number of hours of leading and directing. The required quantity depends on whether someone has a bachelor's degree or equivalent, but the two categories remain. Assume someone has a bachelor's degree. They need to demonstrate at least 36 unique months of working on projects and a total of at least 4,500 hours. Say Project A went from January to October for a total of 1,200 hours. Project B went from July to December for a total of 800 hours. How does this get reported on an application? Well, Project A would count as 10 months towards the 36 unique months. The months of July through October cannot be double counted, so Project B does not get credit for those months. However, the total hours for those two projects, they do count. So the totals for those two projects on the application are 12 unique months and 2,000 hours. They get to count the overlapping hours, but not the overlapping months. Additionally, there are some good practices when filling out the application that you should follow. First off, the goal is not to impress PMI with how many projects you can lead and direct at one time or how many hours you can work per week. So try to limit your reported hours to 40 hours per week. There are, of course, situations where you worked on projects sporadically and may need to count more than 40 hours per week. This is not uncommon for specialized contractors that may have long gaps between projects and then there is a spike. In those cases, make sure that you have detailed backup so that you can use that if audited. There could be time cards, invoices, or any other types of documents that show the hours and the type of work that you have performed. It's not a PMI reporting requirement to limit your time to 40 hours per week, just a smart idea. After all, if you get audited and PMI asks you to show proof that you truly have worked 60 plus hours for months on end, then you better be able to show that proof. Now that you understand what you need to be a PMP, we can discuss the application process itself, starting with the timeline. Once you start, the application is left open for 90 days. I know that sounds like a long time, but when you are trying to track down a boss you worked for 7 years ago, so she can confirm that you actually worked the hours that you are reporting, 90 days can fly by pretty fast. I recommend that you do have all your data pulled together in one spot when you start the application process. PMI works hard to process your application quickly. Online applications are usually processed within 5 days. Of course, if your application is selected for an audit, it will take longer. And if you are one of the lucky ones randomly selected for an audit, PMI gives you 90 days to get them the information that they requested. This is another reason that you want to have all your information together in a nice and neat pile. If you get audited, you can simply send them your data. Although I was not audited, I would recommend that you have all your data in one spreadsheet, each project on a separate tab that you provide to your references, asking them to confirm your data. Keep all their response emails. PMI also tries to get through the audit process in 5 to 7 business days after they receive the information they need from you, which you need to send by regular mail. After the application is processed or the audit is complete, PMI sends you an electronic notice that your payment is due. You can check the Project Management Professional Handbook for current pricing. You cannot schedule your exam until you submit payment. You can now schedule your exam at the appropriate testing center. You have 1 year from the date of the application approval to take the test, and you can take the test a total of 3 times in that year in an attempt to pass. Once you have passed, your recertification cycle starts. You have 3 years from the date of passing the exam to obtain and report 60 PDUs, that's professional development units, towards certification maintenance. This ensures that you continue to improve your project management skills. If you count the time it takes to compile all of your education and work history, the application process can take as long as studying for your exam. Simply keying in all the data into the online application, that's the only way to submit your application, normally takes a couple of hours. You need to supply your contact information and general educational background. This is your high school, college or university data. Then you need to add all the data about your project management related experience. This is both for the work that you have done leading and directing projects in all 5 process groups and the project management specific education. You will need to attest that your information is complete and correct to the best of your knowledge. You can save the application and come back at any time in the next 90 days. You can also print a PDF of the application with all the data you entered so you can verify that you did not make any typos. And I strongly recommend that you do that. You can reduce the time that it takes to input your application data if you plan ahead. The information you need is probably self-explanatory, but I'm going to go over it anyway here to save you some time. First, you need the project name and dates that you worked on the project, and you only need to have the month and year of the work. You also need to supply your role and the industry. Then you need the name and address and phone numbers for the company that ran the project. If that company has been acquired by another company, list the company that would have the records. If the business no longer exists, you can add closed after the name. The application also has space for the name and address and phone number, email address of a contact person who can verify that the data that you entered is correct. This is very important in case of an audit. You must have these people. It may take you a while to hunt down some of these guys and girls. They could have moved to other companies or they may have retired. Your hours need to be broken out by process group. That's initiating, planning, executing, monitoring and controlling, as well as closing the project. You learn all about these in our lessons. When the application is complete, you need hours for leading and directing projects in every one of these 5 groups. You also need to enter a 300 to 550 character long description of your role and activities on the project. This must cover the project objectives, outcomes, your role, responsibilities, and deliverables for each of the process groups for which you are submitting the experience hours. In other words, you have to be very concise. On top of that, make sure that all of this experience happened in the last 8 consecutive calendar years prior to the date that you are submitting your application. Here's another important PMP good practice tip for you. I highly recommend that you use very specific vocabulary. Use the language as you find it in the PMBOK guide and not the language used in your company's project management methodology. Doing this shows PMI that you understand projects from PMI's perspective. You show that you are able to use the appropriate vocabulary for the projects you are documenting. It also ensures that the person reviewing your application can easily recognize and understand the type of experience you have had. It just makes things easier for everyone. And here are 3 more good practices. It's a best practice to prepare for an audit. As I have said twice already, contact your previous sponsors, supervisors, or whomever you use to verify your hours. Provide them your estimates of project hours and process groups. Include a definition of the process groups. They know what you are referring to. That way they know you are applying for an exam. They know that you are using them as a reference in the application. If you are then maybe audited, they have already seen your estimates and there won't be any undesirable miscommunication from them. On the application, you are also asked to identify and provide current information for your primary contact for each project, even if that person is working for a different company now. So if you have been working in a specific company, then you can list either your direct supervisor or your project sponsor. If you worked for a consulting firm and you worked on client assignments, then do not write down the contact information of your final client. List the name of your employer and not the customer. After all, the central person who is best qualified to confirm that you have indeed worked on all these projects, that's your employer. It also makes it much easier for yourself. If you put down the names of 10 different customer contacts and you get audited, well, then you would have to send the documentation to 10 different people. But if you put down your employer or supervisor, then you only have one person to contact. Once your application is complete and you have printed and proofed it, you can submit it so that you can schedule your exam. But there are a few steps involved. After your application is accepted by PMI, you receive an acceptance email from them. You must now return to PMI's site, log into your account and go to your certifications page and pay your exam fee. Once that is done, you can schedule the exam. The exam is a computer-based exam and managed by a company called Prometric. They have offices worldwide and there is probably a testing center in your area. You can now go to prometric.com/PMI and select an exam date. Are you wondering what the actual exam is like? Well, here it is. The PMP exam is administered at a Prometric testing center. These are secure facilities where you are restricted on what you can bring in. Read the rules before you go. If you have a medical condition that needs to be considered, you must tell them in advance. The exam has 200 multiple choice questions, including 25 pre-test questions that PMI is using to determine the question attributes. In essence, PMI is using you here as a guinea pig to see how well these questions work. The pre-test questions, they do not affect the score and they are randomly placed throughout the examination, and you will not know which questions are the pre-test questions. The result is that there are 175 questions that contribute to your score. You are given 4 hours to complete the test. In order to test your understanding of the project management concepts, the format of the questions is situational and based on current project management titles and PMI standards. The Project Management PrepCast lessons and exam simulator are tailored towards PMP style questions. There are dozens of PMP certified practitioners and academics that help create and review our question database. PMP exam questions are distributed across the 5 process groups, as you can see here in this table. Each process group has a specified percentage of questions that you will have to answer, and we've done the math to show the number of questions based on the 200 total exam questions. One thing that's important to understand is that the reference material that PMI uses, it's not just the PMBOK guide. It also uses other material, current project management titles, as well as PMI standards. In total, you have 4 hours of time in which you must answer all of the 200 questions. And here's a quick exam tip for you. I really do mean all of the questions. Don't leave a single question unanswered. There is no penalty for answering a question incorrectly, but not answering a question means it's automatically counted as wrong. Just guessing gives you a 25% chance of getting it right. One question that I regularly get is about the exam passing score. Now, many years ago, PMI followed a simple percentage approach, so you knew you needed to have X% of the answers correct in order to pass. No more. Instead, PMI now follows sound psychometric analysis. Psychometrics, that's the field of study concerned with the theory and technique of psychological measurement, which includes the measurement of knowledge, abilities, attitudes, personality traits, and education. This field is primarily concerned with the construction and validation of measurement instruments, such as questionnaires, tests, and personality assessments. Now, for the PMP exam, this means that each question may have a different weight, and each exam may be scored on its individual merits. And I say may because we really don't know for sure how exactly PMI does their scoring. At a very high level, psychometrical analysis means that if you get lots of easier questions on your particular exam, then you need to answer more correctly. Conversely, if you get the more difficult questions, you need to get fewer correct in order to pass. But again, Nobody but PMI really knows how exactly it's done. Therefore, if you hear anyone quote a percent of questions that you have to get correct to pass, please tell them that they don't really understand how psychometrical analysis works. Here is a sample exam score report. When you're done with the test, you are given your score and whether you passed or not. The results, which you can also retrieve from the PMI website, give you a simple answer of whether you passed or not. In addition, it shows you how you fared with respect to PMI's target for your certification. And here you can see that this fictitious person passed the exam to PMI's target. It does not tell you which question you got wrong. Further down on the page, it shows a description of what the terms mean, and at the bottom of the page it shows you how you fared in specific areas of the test. This allows you to know where you should focus future studies to improve your skills. If you happen to fail your exam, you can retake it 2 times in the 1-year window. Your results are accessible from the PMI website. Here is an example of what one might look like. You can see it identifies in simple red, yellow and green shading what areas you need to focus on when studying to retake your exam. In this example, the fictitious person needs to focus on initiating, planning and monitoring. But you're not going to fail, right? So this is the only time you will see a form like this. Once you pass your PMP exam, you must show ongoing professional commitment to the field of project management. A big part of this is the fact that the PMP certificate is not for life. Once you are a certificate holder, you need to adhere to PMI's continuing certification requirements, the CCR program. This entails participating in professional development activities to earn professional development units, PDUs, and maintain your credential. Every PMI credential or certification except the CAPM requires a specific amount of professional development units for each 3-year recertification cycle. For the PMP, you need 60 PDUs. And that's not just once. You have to earn these PDUs and maintain your credential every 3 years and pay a certification renewal fee. We've mentioned 2 terms that probably need clarification, and those terms are contact hours and professional development units, or PDUs. The difference is significant. They're used at different times in the certification lifecycle. Contact hours are accomplished by getting education and only education in project management prior to your certification. These contact hours are needed to taking your certification. They take you there. After you are certified, though, you need to continue your education by earning PDUs. So the hours spent to maintain your certification, those are called PDUs. In short, we call them contact hours before you take your exam, and we call them PDUs after you have passed. The Continuing Certification Requirements Handbook, the CCR Handbook, defines the rules for earning PDUs in detail, but it's critical to remember that you do not just study project management. You need to earn a minimum of 8 PDUs in each of the 3 areas noted by the PMI Talent Triangle picture here. Taking the 3 sides of the triangle in no particular order, there is technical project management knowledge, means being fluent in the processes, inputs, tools, techniques and outputs that you spent most of your time working on as a project manager. Another side of the triangle is strategic and business management knowledge, or understanding the working of the business you are in, including the goals of your particular organization. And last but not least, leadership knowledge, which helps you get the most out of your project team and stakeholders. You are free to get more than 8 PDUs in each area, but you must have at least that minimum for each. You need an additional 11 PDUs in these 3 areas to get recertified for a total of 35 educational PDUs. Those 11 PDUs, they can be dispersed across any part of the triangle. You can get educational PDUs in a variety of ways. For instance, you can attend a PMI chapter event, do self-study like reading a book on project management, leadership, strategy or business, take project management classes, watch a webinar or go to a seminar, or Listen to any of our hundreds of podcasts. We have 2 websites that are loaded with educational materials that you can listen to on the bus or train and on the beach or at work or wherever you are. And new episodes come out almost weekly. You can reach the materials for the PDU podcast by going to PDUcast.com and then the Project Management podcast at PM-podcast.com. Both are great ways to learn more about your project management profession and to earn PDUs. You can also earn and claim up to 25 giving back PDUs. These are for the time you spend doing activities such as teaching a class that relates to project management, writing an article or book on a project management topic, giving a presentation on a method you have used on a project that includes becoming a guest on the Project Management podcast together with me, or volunteering for PMI or one of its hundreds of chapters. Remember that this is a maximum number of PDUs you can claim in this category, 25. There is no minimum. You could fulfill your entire recertification in just educational PDUs. The best thing you can do is to check out the details by looking at the Continuing Certification Requirements Handbook, the CCR Handbook, and read up on the rules. One last topic is what to do if you have more than one certification. There are many project managers out there who hold multiple of these PMI certifications. For example, Joe here is certified both as a PMP as well as a PMI ACP, and Sue has her PGMP and also her SP, that's the scheduling professional. This means that they now need to earn PDUs. They need 60 PDUs for their PMP or PGMP certificate, and 30 PDUs for the ACP and the SP. The good news for them is now that they don't actually need to earn 90 PDUs because the specialized PDUs count toward their renewal of the PMP. In other words, if you are a dual certification holder like these two, then always earn your specialized PDUs first. In this case, the 30 PDUs for Joe's PMI ACP or for Susan's PMI SP, they count towards the PMP. This is because these automatically are added up towards your PMP and PGMP. Once you have the 30 specialized PDUs, you can go ahead and earn your other 30 traditional PDUs to complete the cycle. By now you're thinking, wow, I should have taken better notes. There's a lot of data here telling me how to do this process. Well, it's your lucky day. Here's a summary of the 10 steps to getting your PMP certification. First, read the PMP handbook. This has all the information you need and some special information that we did not have time to cover. Second, determine your eligibility by tallying up your hours based on your education. Third, develop a plan to get the rest of these steps done based on your workload. Fourth, join PMI. The price of joining PMI is more than offset by the savings you get on the application, exam, the PMBOK guide, and so on. So start your PMP application process. That way you can start entering your education and work experience as well. Fifth, get the PMBOK guide. The PDF version is free with your membership. Sixth, get training, which of course is the Project Management PrepCast training from us. So you learn all the material that is not in the PMBOK guide as well. Seventh, get our exam simulator so that you can practice for the exam. Eighth, study, study, study. Ninth, you have to practice exam questions multiple times. And 10th, you have to take and pass the exam. And as a bonus, I'm giving you an 11th step. Develop a PDU plan for your recertification. And you need to start that right after you pass. As with all of our lessons, before we go, here are the takeaways. The PMP certification from PMI is the gold standard of project management certifications worldwide. In many industries, having a PMP is a requisite to even getting a job as a project manager. Eligibility requirements are stringent based on your education and the number of hours you have been a project manager. You need to report that experience in your application, which could be audited. So keep good records and develop a good plan for earning your new credential. You need 35 hours of project management specific education called contact hours, and the Project Management PrepCast here fulfills those for you. When you sit for the exam, it is proctored and you are given 4 hours to answer 200 questions. Carefully read the instructions in the handbook. There are many restrictions on what you can bring with you and the actions you can take during the exam. The PMP credential is not a lifelong credential. Instead, you must recertify it every 3 years by earning PDUs. You can do that through continuing education or by giving back to the project management profession. And that's it for our PMP exam overview. Until next time.